Eitan Dangot, thanks as always for joining me today. So let's talk about the situation in Gaza. After a few weeks of relatively quiet situation, we see the balloons coming back. What does it mean?
I think that we have to start from the fact that we are after the Eid al-Adha, the main holiday now for the Muslims, that Hamas were very interested that it will pass without any kind of tense inside Gaza in order to give the population maybe to celebrate it not as it was before in the Eid al-Fitr. Secondly, Hamas is now in a junction. What does it mean? It means they will try to move ahead to achieve the things, but they will be very careful, because I think their main strategic goal is not to create any kind of violence or escalation now, but what they did with the balloons, it's a sign that we have no patience. On the other hand, I must emphasize you that Hamas is trying to expand their territory or their influence by what happened from Lebanon. It's not the first time that Hamas people launched rockets from the Palestinian camps. And secondly, also to look what they are continue to make statements about their responsibility for Jerusalem. It means, and what was published yesterday, that Hamas made an order for the release of the illegal prisoners and for the bodies of our soldiers there to create any kind of moving the negotiation. So it's a sign from Hamas. I don't see the escalation running rapidly, but I think it will be in a step by step. On the other hand, another thing, Hamas is not thinking tactically. Their demand, as it was published, that one of the conditions for releasing the bodies is to the release from Israel of Barghouti. It means they are looking for the day after Abu Mazen, that in my opinion has been started. And what does it mean? That Barghouti will be their partner for the day after Abu Mazen for their main goal.
So let's divide everything you said into small pieces. Israel said after the last operation in Gaza, Guardian of the Walls, that a balloon will be treated as a rocket and Sderot will be treated as Tel Aviv. So if Israel follows what it said a couple of months ago, if we see those balloons continue, we might see another round of escalation in Gaza?
I think that you're right, but Israel has to stand behind its statement, because we are now in a very, again, sensitive position not to lose what Israel has stated after the last escalation that happened. And Israel is not to give up for anything. Terror is terror where it happened everywhere. So what does it mean? I don't think that the reaction of Israel should be always as a routine that after balloon will come attack. It can work 1, 2, 3 times, not more. Israel has to combine together its policy. Also to use maybe targeting the head of those activities of balloon. And also maybe to react in Lebanon against those who are launching the rockets. It means you have to think out of the box and to sign your messages in a way that the other side will calculate its step very, very deeply.
Israel sits in Cairo and speaks to the Palestinians, but Israel said if they do not disarm, we will not continue. If they will not release the prisoners, the bodies of the soldiers and the Israelis kept there, we will not continue. So it's a deadlock.
It looks like a deadlock, but I think that on the other hand, Hamas a lot to lose if they are not going with this kind of procedure. Why? Hamas is looking for the long term. The movement of the Muslim Brothers is in a main problem. Hamas is like the flag today, which carry the flag of terrorism to, let's say, by it to succeed in order to improve their ideology. But on the other hand, they are in a very important point now when Abu Mazen is going down and down. You see the bumbling in the West Bank now that is running. If Hamas is not creating for itself a quiet ceasefire for a medium time, for a long time, they will lose, I think, their ideology, because we have not to lose Israel, because with such a terror ideologic movement, you have to return back with the language they understand. And after this last escalation, Israel said, and it must stand behind it, no terror, giving the condition not rebuild again Gaza without returning of the bodies for the beginning. Even later you can talk about disarm the Hamas and the other things. If Hamas stands behind its point or ideology not to give anything, I think they have a lot to lose today. Don't forget that Egypt is the window for them for freedom by going outside from Rafah as a main rule. Also has an umbrella by the United States today that look at Egypt as the main, let's say, the country that can make the ceasefire for itself, because the United States is not so interested about what's going now. They would like to see a ceasefire. So I think that Hamas, which looks for many years as a very serious terror movement, which calculates its strategic steps, will take it on account. But you have on the other end, as you know, for many years we are in the Middle East, and tactic activities many times brought together the both sides for escalation. So it can happen, but I think today that Hamas will be much more careful for itself.
I've mentioned in my previous question the issue of the Palestinian prisoners and the Israeli bodies and civilians kept in Gaza. Do you see a solution to that? Because the price that Hamas demands is so high, and Israel will never pay it. But if there will not be a solution, Israel said publicly, we will not continue to anything.
It looks like there is a very high wall between the both sides, and you're right. But from my experience, I have also some opportunities to think, to be more optimistic, because I think that at the end, Hamas is very well thinking about the next steps, and Israel should not give up at all. It's a story that will be impact for the future. So maybe it will be a crash or escalation. On the other hand, it could happen today, tomorrow. We know that it will happen not far from now. So it's better, and I hope without bloodshed, that it will not happen, that it will not happen without releasing prisoners with blood on their hands. Above all, Barghouti has to be put on him an X, not be released at all, because he has to sit for a long time in prison, and I know that they would like to use Barghouti as their front guy for their future plans. So you're right, it looks like there will not be a solution, but as in such a cases where it is silence and it's not going outside with outlines with the press, I think there is a chance to create something that is not expecting.
You've mentioned Lebanon and the shooting of rockets from Lebanon to Israel. So we've seen 3 cases during the operation in Gaza. That is understood. They wanted to sympathize with their brothers in Gaza, etc. We saw the last case last week came out of nowhere. What can Israel do to stop that? Because Israel does not want to fight in Lebanon.
I think that Israel should change the concept nowadays in Lebanon, because Lebanon is looking like there is no kind of controlling on the country as a country. So you have to put a threat towards Lebanon, to warn Lebanon that will be legitimation to target and to react against such rocket attack on Israel next time. Secondly, Israel has to make some signs by attacking, and I think that Israel know how to do it, even the people that are responsible to it, and to use other kind of targets that they can use, and to not to react only by artillery as a regular reaction.